The looming food crisis in the northwest, southwest, west east region is becoming a cause for concern by scientists. Some farmers across the 10 regions of the country are having difficulties in their maize farm with the invasion of armyworm, especially those who are within areas that lack the basic necessity of countering down these armyworms. Just after farmers were struggling for solution to ensure that their maize plant is not being attacked by armyworm, there is another invasion, and this time the black beetles that is attacking maize across the nation is making scientists to be worried and raising the concern that we could be in a food crisis in a month to come if care is not taken, if actions are not taken, if government doesn't take action to subsidize some of the pesticides that will be needed to counteract these measures. We may loom into having food crisis. Maize in itself contains close to 77 to 87% of carbohydrates and starch within its content, and made up of a gross number of food percentage of food consumption in the Cameroon, and to be more precise, in the northwest and southwest region, and even in the brewery industry. Maize play a key role in how and what they do in terms of consumption. And if maize is attacked, the food chain will be greatly affected, and thus food supply in the nation will be greatly affected. What must be done by farmers, government officials, in order to ensure that maize plant is well protected faced with this invasion of black beetles as well as armyworm? This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Jarvis.
They have managed to know the place. Call for action.
You're welcome back. We apologize for the technical start. We are struggling to get to some of our guests who are around the studio who are yet to make their way in, and so we apologize for the long break that we took. And here in the studio we are talking about the issue of armyworm and black beetles that is now a threat to many farmers across the nation. And also we are asking the question, what must be done by farmers also researchers as well as authorities in order to help these farmers to overcome the challenges. We are joined here in the studio by Professor Mark Akumbong, who is here with us, and also we shall be expecting Professor Justin Okole as well as Nelson, Suh Nelson, a new panelist who have knowledge as far as the agriculture field is concerned. Professor Akumbong, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jarvis, for the opportunity to be here. And I want to say good morning and happy Sunday to Cameroonians watching us and to Africans. It is a pleasure to be here to share my opinion concerning the present crisis. I mean, when we talk about maize crisis that is looming in the air.
Thank you very much. We'll begin the program with you while we await the arrival of our guests who shall be here in the studio with us. Prof, we are looking at this issue of maize farming. It's a major call for concern, because if we look at the entire nation in itself, the composition of maize in terms of the food chain is almost to 60% in terms of what we have. And if maize is actually being greatly affected as what we are experiencing, it is scientists fear that it will greatly affect food supply and thus will affect the economy of our nation and also the nutrition in some of these areas that heavily depend on maize for food and also beverages. Your take on this situation?
Yes, Jarvis, if you look at it critically, you realize that most of the areas, or say environments or regions in Cameroon actually depend on maize. If you go from the north, you go to the northwest, you come down to the central region, you go to the east, I think even some place in the south, Adamawa, in fact, let's say the Grand Nord, they practically depend on maize. And it will become a very dangerous situation if, at the end of the day, these army worms get to attack and destroy this maize. And what's of it, like you mentioned, the black beetle is, and in fact, it's really an enemy to maize. Why? Because the moment they have the favorable condition to grow or to feed, let's say from 15 degrees centigrade down to 22, they take their best to, in fact, they eat everything that they see around them. So it is going to be very dangerous for us if such happens. But I want to go back to talk about this issue of the army worm. You know, a lot of persons are hearing army worm. Army worms are actually the larvae of moth.
Yes.
There's this moth, some of us call it butterfly. A moth is that very fat butterfly, and the particular moth that lays this African army worm is having a white dot on it. And if you see them during a particular period, let's say during dry season, flying towards a particular environment, you need to start looking for pesticides. You need to, in order for you to overcome them, you need to look for a way to bring in, at times, I would say, friendly insects. Because, you know, we have a problem in Cameroon, and one of the reasons why these pests are actually eating up everywhere, simply because most of us, we use a lot of pesticides which are against the environment. We use pesticides that actually get to kill even the insects that could be favorable in fighting against the army worm. And as long as these things, the attack happens, as long as this attack happens, what we are going to suffer from is, at the end of the day, there will be shortage of maize. And so that is exactly what happens when these worms come, when that moth comes, lay its eggs. These eggs are under the ground, and a lot of persons do not even know. Most farmers, as I mentioned, if you want to, one of the ways to fight these things is you must be vigilant. You should be vigilant to watch. Once you see this moth coming around, flying towards your area, you need to start looking for ways to bring in, I don't know, as you say, introduce friendly insects to eat those eggs off. You bring in, should I say, particular pesticides that will be able to fight that
I want us to look at this. What measures have actually been put in place by the state, or what was the state? Because we are seeing this is coming and very little is being said from the political level and also decision making in terms of the members of parliament.
I want to say that we have a country that has measured in which friendly insects could possibly have the opportunity to stay there. And you know, like I mentioned, friendly insects somehow tend to eat up the larva of most of these worms, these worms. And if we have synthetic pesticides that have been introduced, in generation and given all, we are practically killing the house. So the government, in one way or the other, is actually not doing something to her at the moment, as I'm saying. They might say they're giving pesticides to fight against, but one of the problems is pesticides also matter. We need organic pesticides and not just any kind of pesticide to fight against the stuff. So we
how ready now for that organic?
I think we went a lot to discuss on that, because when you talk about readiness, I think at the moment there are ancient organic pesticides that have been used before by our parents, which are still in existence, which I think we should modernize them and implement, are used on daily basis instead of constant importation of these dangerous pesticides that kill everything around. Yeah.
Okay. We've just been joined by Professor Okole Justin and also Suh Nelson. Professor Okole Justin is an expert when it comes to pest management control. He has moved across the African continent and also within the Western world to give lectures as far as pest control is concerned. And he was first at now he is at in Kumba at Iraq, where he is there carrying his research. He is also a research lecturer when it comes to the field of agriculture within different states universities across Cameroon and Africa, and he has written so many articles as far as pest management control is concerned, and where banana bunching top disease is concerned, and he is one of those who are advocating for organic ways in terms of treatment of crops and also fighting pests. He is known to be one of the renowned experts when it comes to pests in Cameroon, as to speak. There are not many experts as far as that is concerned, and he is here with us, Professor Okole Justin. Happy Sunday and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvis, for coming, for inviting me today for this very good program. We are sorry to come a little bit late, some small embouteillage or so.
No, I understand. So, you know, you left from Kumba, you have to drive to the valley of what we consider in the southwest region, right, to arrive here today.
True.
So we appreciate you for accepting our invitation. And also here in the studio, we are joined by Suh Nelson, who is a research fellow, PhD candidate as far as pest management is concerned, and also is a new panelist, someone who is latest for House of Commons is concerned, and we hope that he's going to stay for other programs that may be of general interest. He is here with us as far as the topic is concerned, and we want to thank you, Suh Nelson, for coming, and happy Sunday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jarvis, for giving us this opportunity to be here today. It's actually pleasure to be here, and to begin, I really want to applaud you guys and appreciate you for all what you've been doing at my media prime. I would say I'm one of your fans. I watch this program every time and I'm always very impressed, and I really want to appreciate you and applaud the team for always educating the population on a couple of activities and a couple of glaring things that will help the society, our community, and Cameroon at large.
Thank you very much. I continue with you, Professor Justin. You came in while we were talking about this issue of armyworm and also looking at the black beetles. Professor Akumbong was also giving a highlight as far as that is concerned. I want to start with you. You are an expert who work in this field, and also you have a deep understanding as to what armyworm actually is. When you look at first the armyworm, how much of a threat does it pose? And now the black beetles, how much of a threat does it pose to our farmers? Because if maize plant, which contain close to 70 to 87% of our carbohydrate and make a good percentage of our food chain, if it's greatly affected, which means there's trouble.
Yes, thank you. I think that, you see, pests are very serious issues when it comes to agriculture, both livestock and crop production. You can't deal away with pests because one thing or another, pests will always evolve. They will invade, they will come. Some of them that have been very, very, let's say, not too serious because of one environmental factor or the other, they start coming up as serious pests. Indigenous ones that were not really serious start coming up as serious pests because of our management practices, because of climatic changes and other factors, changes in soil factors and all that, and even our farming systems. So the fall armyworm came to Cameroon in 2017. And it was widespread in Africa since 2016. It came from other regions, you know, and then invaded Africa and was so serious, especially for plants that are 1 to about 1 month old. So when you plant the maize plants from 1 week to about 4 weeks old, it is very serious on them. And at the beginning, we used to have a situation of about 30% yield loss caused by the fall armyworm. But as people began getting sensitized, educated on the biology, ecology, the life system of the pest, and start employing control measures, the amount of damage start reducing. Yes, so it is a serious threat because it spreads fast.
Okay.
Yeah, for the black beetle is something that is just coming. And Suh Nelson here, who is a PhD student, is actually working just on that black beetle. Yes, he's one of our students working on that.
Prof, I want us to stay briefly with you before coming to the black beetles. How much of awareness are the stakeholders, especially researchers of your kind, are making to the public to understand that this is a great threat? Because we understand, like in the northwest region, a lot of farm maize plants were really affected, farmland were really affected, especially also in the southwest region. Those who were across the Lesoka area moving right down to the Mount Carmel area, that trade was really affected. And that's why you see maize now is quite very expensive. You will get a small portion like this, they tell you it's 500 because of the condition in which most of these farms were affected. And when we look at the situation, how much awareness have been done by researchers to farmers?
Yes, I think immediately when there was an outbreak of this pest in 2016 to 17, the government, so many stakeholders have been doing a lot of things to sensitize the farmers on this problem. A lot of international meetings have been held, a lot of regional meetings have been held, a lot of national meetings have been held concerning fall armyworm. I've attended most of those. Like CORAF. CORAF is an organization of West and Central Africa that has been playing an important role in sensitizing different stakeholders on the importance of this pest, on the life system of this pest, where this pest is found, where they lay their eggs, where the caterpillars damage, how they damage, the time, which season, which time, and all those type of things. They have been sensitizing a lot of people at different level. At the national level also, with the help of the African Development Bank, several meetings have been held. In Yaoundé, I attended one of those meetings where a lot of stakeholders from Central and West African region came, in short, the whole of Africa came to Yaoundé to talk about the pest, to find ways, measures of how we can cope this pest at different levels, using different ways and different techniques. So at that level, it has been sensitized. So many people have been sensitized on that. Also, at our own level as researchers, we have been carrying out research and then sensitizing farmers at different stations or different levels that we can sensitize. The Ministry of Agriculture too has done a lot, calling stakeholders in the area, extension officers, sensitizing them so that they could go back to their communities and, you know, teach the farmers. So many farmers are now aware of the presence of fall armyworm because they keep on reporting.
Okay.
Yes, and some of them have also discovered some techniques, both indigenous techniques and exported techniques that they are using to help manage the problem.
Yeah, because most of them are watching us right now. I want to come now to you, Suh Nelson. There's always an adage where when we have pandemic like this affecting crops, and many farmers who are not quite informed or aware that it's a scientific process tend to accuse their neighbors of being witches and those who are taking away their product, because there's always a cliche that this person has taken away, has used witchcraft to pull away my resources. So when we see that, it's common in villages where your crop is not doing well, instead of carry out research or to ask researchers, if you tend to say like you say in pidgin, this man don't draw my crops. So when you look at this now, what is actually these black beetles?
Thank you very much, Mr.
And what
Jarvis.
are their life cycle?
Yes, before I begin, I want to just give a small motivational talk to my viewers. When I began at my teenage age, I was very passionate about agriculture. Secondly, I grew up in an agricultural background. So I farmed together with the family. When we used to farm, I discovered that sometimes when we apply even fertilizer in the field, both organic and inorganic, I don't usually see a change. In the course of that, I decided to do upsearch research to see what can be done with respect to most of the pests we have in the field, because we are the ones who actually define it as a pest. So in the course of that, I got into research and I began discovering pests like the heteronicus, which we call the grubs. It is actually scientifically called Heteronicus orator. It is a ground-dwelling pest. We call it subterranean. It is polyphagous because it feeds on different types of crops, be it maize, be it vegetable, and other root and tuber crops. So, coming back to your question, which you actually addressed, and farmers used to say it is actually something which is traditional. It is not. That is why we got into scientific research to discover this problem. Yes. The more reason why I got into research, and in the course of my PhD work, when I started, I didn't discover the lot of challenges that farmers are facing. Just recently, about a month ago, with Prof. Okole, we received a couple of pictures from farmers from the field. Interestingly, when we saw the pictures, they were very similar to what was in the field. And that gave us more research to discover what this pest is. Being polyphagous, it feeds on several crops, not only maize. And we all know that maize is a crop that is consumed by more than 95% all over the world, and most especially in Cameroon. The people from Bamenda will testify with me that maize, for example, when you consume maize directly as roasted maize, we call it in Bamenda the ice cream. Yes, we call it our usual ice cream. So it's consumed by everyone. So it's a crop that we must take into consideration to manage. If not, it's going to affect our food security. As a result of that, I had to make sure with my prof and my supervisors to do more research. Coming to the pest itself, its origin is from South Africa, and this pest alone, it's feeding mostly underground. As I earlier said, it feeds on roots of plants. For example, it starts at the seedling stage where it feeds on the root. There are a couple of pictures that will be shown on the screen to help the farmers identify this particular pest, because for you to get into control and management of this pest, you must begin by identifying the pest. So if we are able to demonstrate to you the pest and its life cycle, the biology and ecology, you'll be able to help the farmers to come out with control measures, management methods that will control this pest. So it is not a traditional problem. It's not something that farmers sit back and say, no, my grandmammy or my grandpapa for village, now it causes this problem. It's life, it's reality. And that is why we are going into research to actually come out with possible solutions that will help solve the problem of the farmers.
Now, I'll stay with you. I want us to look at now. Let's start with the black beetle. First of all, the life cycle of this black beetle. Because sometimes, why I hope that our technical team will have to get the images. But first, when you look at these black beetles in itself, it says from South Africa, and I had an experience that was within a week. That's what actually motivated me to come up with this topic and to try to get to you guys to see whether we can actually discuss this, because great number of farmers in the Menchung division were also affected. And when I went down to Moya within the last week, I realized that most of the farmers were complaining about the maize plant, because I actually went down to the field with my brother in some of their farms and realized that they were actually complaining. And sometimes they did not understand the crop. You talk about identification. What is the life cycle of this?
Okay, coming to this crop, it is a metabolous, meaning that it has a complete metamorphosis. It undergoes complete metamorphosis. It has 4 stages, where you have the egg, you have the larva, the pupa, and the adult. The egg, it is oval, it's whitish in color. The larva has 3 stages, where you have the first instar, you have the second instar, and the third. It's different from the 4 armyworm that has 6 instars. So with the larva, it is what we call the most infestive stage, which is what you saw and what the farmers have been complaining about. Equally, you have the pupa, which is the resting stage, and they all harbor in the soil underground. They can burrow right up to 10 centimeters to about 30. Interestingly, when they burrow there, they can stay for over a diapause period of about 2-3 months. It has a complete life cycle of between 3 months to over a year, depending on the season.
So which means that if it's not treated, you may harvest and you still plant within it and it's still there continuously.
Definitely. Now, what happens is that when you farm over time, the population keeps building. It builds over time, and it has alternative hosts. For example, you have what we call the so-called mandula plant. In scientific terms, we call it Panicum maximum. We equally have the elephant grass, Penicitum, Piperum. They all harbor as alternative hosts, as well as the root system of the maize plant itself. They harbor there. When you harvest, especially most farmers, what they do is that they harvest their crops and allow the maize in the field. So the adult stage keeps remaining in the soil. It lays its egg, gets into the larva, where the larva now emerges. The egg emerges into the larva. The larva now comes and consumes most of the roots of the plant, and then now changes into the pupa, which the pupa is the resting stage, and the adult, which is actually the stage that flies and disseminates or migrates to other areas.
Okay, before I go to Professor Mark, let me just briefly, I want to get this. Now, when I have a maize plant, for example, within the first period of offshoot from the shoot, how does it start affecting the plant? Okay. Is it from just 2 weeks after it shoots off, or 3 weeks, or how the life cycle of a plant? Because sometimes you see a maize plant start and it start getting yellowish, and before you realize it reaches a certain stage, it flower off without maturity, and it dies down, and so.
Okay, thank you very much. With respect to Heteronicus aerator, which is the crop itself, or the black maize beetle, what happens is that it starts its infestation at 7 days after germination. From that period, you start realizing that the maize plant develops some symptoms, above ground symptoms, which are yellowish leaves. It becomes stunted. Equally, you might have some few tillers. The leaves become tiller-like in structure. So what happens, it starts with that 7 days. That is why we advise farmers to start doing scouting, surveillance, and monitoring within that period, because that is the period when it emerges. It starts infesting the field. From that 7 days, you realize that the maize is no longer growing well. It cannot meet up with its age mates, which maybe during that period you have just about 5 centimeters tall, 10, 20. Some are already about 30. You see a difference of 10 centimeters and 50 centimeters. Those that are unhealthy, 10. Those that are healthy, you have about 30 centimeters. Some even grow up to 50 centimeters during that period. So that is when it starts, 7 days after germination, and it starts progressing till it reaches the adult stage of the maize where it gets matured. And during that period, you can even have toppling of the maize because it has consumed all of its fibrous roots, and so cannot withstand even the wind, cannot withstand its ecological challenges that come its way.
So which means that when the wind passes by, most of the plants are uprooted.
Yes, most of the plants are uprooted.
So which means, Professor Mark, this explains why farmers should not say their farms have been affected by witches and wizards. I'm sure you must have heard this before.
We are within the African context, and in Africa, it is part and parcel for understanding that when some things are happening, it is easy to apportion it to, let's say, witchcraft or spiritism. Let's put it like that. You see, a lot of things do happen in Africa, and I want a lot of Africans listening to me this morning to get to understand something. Speaking from a Pan-Africanist position, I want to say that according to research, the challenge we are facing right now in Cameroon and the continent of Africa is something that never used to be in Africa. It is of recent that we are talking of the armyworm in Cameroon, and recently the black maize beetle. Question: where did it come from? Our PhD fellow here just said it came from South Africa, but really it didn't come from South Africa. It left far away from the United States and from Europe. The question is, what caused that particular armyworm and black maize beetle to be found in the West? What favored its growth there that it was not in Africa? You realize that it is attached to the kind of management of the soil that was done in Europe, which was different from what was done in Africa. You see, today they come with big the lessons to come give to Africa about how to manage the environment, but they can't manage the environment better than Africans. Why will I tell you that? I should explain this to you. Anywhere the Westerner found himself in the world, he has affected and destroyed the environment. And today they have brought it to Africa. We were not talking about GMOs before. But from the moment GMOs came to Africa, we started having dangerous effects to our environment. And I will tell you, when these synthetic fertilizers are brought, pesticides are brought.
Synthetic pesticide?
Yes. When they are brought, what happens is, as I mentioned earlier, they are friendly insects. For example, let me say if we try to destroy the black maize beetle, we will tend to also kill the dung beetle, which is very important towards the growth of things. So if you want to fight that stuff, and the dung beetle is there, which is supposed to help towards how do you call it, to permit nitrites to affect the soil for plants to grow, you kill it. And so when you kill it, what happens? And let me be sincere, it has also proven scientifically that most of the so-called pesticides do not actually kill the larva. It doesn't. It kills the beetle itself, and it kills it only at contact, implying that if those things are supposed to be fought with the system that they have brought to us, we are going to practically destroy our own soil. And so what should we do? I am sure that people like Professor here, they are looking for They are struggling to build on the organic system that we had here.
Yes.
Because that is what is supposed to be used.
To explain us.
We are supposed to go back, look at the way our ancestors and those who were before us, our elders, our fathers, used to work and maintain the soil, and we will have good yield without the destruction of this stuff. Now that this thing has come, how do we fight it from a natural viewpoint without bringing in synthetic stuff that will come destroy the soil more? Because I'll tell you, as I mentioned earlier, from the onset, looking at things critically, the reduction, if we have to maintain that there is food scarcity in the world, then we need to destroy the soil in order to give that value, so that a particular group of people can supply food to the world.
Okay. Prof, let me just come in before you. Briefly, you talked about that this aspect. I'll be coming to Dr. Okole on that, because I saw him nodding maybe in agreement, or I don't know. But now, you talked about the fact, let's go back to the old days.
Yes.
Before, we used to practice shifting cultivation because the land was so many. Well, we had a vast land. Now there's no chance for shifting cultivation. And we know that with shifting cultivation, you can plant here and you leave this site to fallow for a while, and before you come back, all those things are no longer there. But now we are cultivating in spontaneous. You blame the issue also on genetically modified GMO?
Yes,
which
that's
also is also an
true.
factor.
That is one of the greatest destroyer of our soil, and as well as our original seeds. Why? Because when you plant GMOs, it is true that they might the first yield, wow, it is wonderful, but you can't make seed out of the yield that comes. When you take the seed that let me say, when you take the GMO seed and you plant, for first yield, wow, it's very good. Take that very seed, the very yield, and try to pick seed out of it and plant for the next year. You will discover that you have nothing. Why? It has been treated genetically in order to, it is selected. And that is against the ecosystem. It is working. If you look at the plan of these people, like I mentioned, the intent is practically to create a situation where there is food scarcity, so that they can control the food. And when somebody controls your stomach, the person controls your entire economy. Okay. And that becomes very dangerous. And so they are looking for ways to control food supply, so that at the end of the day, you have to depend on them to eat.
So we are still in a kind of colonial...
That is what is happening. So before I give the table, you ask a question about the shifting cultivation.
Yes.
The only reason why our parents used to do shifting cultivation is they never actually had good understanding of our times. Let me say something. They were burning, they used to burn the environment in order to have that opportunity to plant. And when they do it, they kill the bacteria which is at the topsoil. And it happens that the next year the place does not yield well. And so they have to go somewhere else, do the same thing, and then wait for years when the grass start growing back before they come. And so that becomes problematic in itself, because a place where maybe you could continuously use organic techniques to multiply supply, you were killing the fertility of the environment through burning. So I think that there is need. People like a professor, this is not my field of discussion, so, but I think he has best and better insight to supply on this. But as I'm saying, from a Pan-African position, everything GMO has an agenda. Okay. Synthetic fertilizers, they have an agenda, and this agenda is not to help Africans. They can come and give you free seeds, collect them, but those free seeds will destroy your...
and this explains why we have so many cancer.
Let me say something. Voila. Do you know that during pollination, for example, yes, during pollination, for example, if you have planted GMO, and let me just use a butterfly comes, lands here to suck nectar and then go to fertilize over there. It takes the GMO this into fertilize, maybe an organic seed there. Indirectly, it has destroyed that organic seed, because there's an hybrid that is being produced that's going to destroy the environment. And so it is strategic. It is not just for no reason. They have planned it. It's well planned.
Prof, I don't know if you agree with the things that Professor Akumbong raised.
Yes, one of the things true, even though it's debatable. There's a lot of debates.
So he was talking about the political.
There's a lot of it's a lot of debates that is like GMOs. Even if you look at a lot of literature that have been published on GMO, you have a lot of school of thought that they don't want it,
No, we don't.
and others say they want it. Europe don't want it. America wants it.
Just imagine.
So, and then America is forcing it on Africa, and then Europe is saying that no, if you take it, we will not buy your products. So Africa is caught in a web.
The devil and the devil.
Yes. So there are a lot of articles that have shown some advantages, disadvantages of GMOs. That one is okay. The issue of organic pesticides and synthetic also there are debates. But majority of the advocacies are going towards sustainable management.
Good.
Sustainable management. The pesticides are there. They still produce them. They tell you some of its advantages and most of its disadvantages. Some tell you that with a growing population and the high demand of food, you cannot really do away with synthetic, pesticides or agrochemicals. The other school of thought is saying that no, you can deal, by let us start making research and coming out with products that are organic, that are specific, that will not destroy the environment, that will not change a lot of things in the ecosystem, So, and there are a lot of researches that have shown certain organic pesticides or chemicals that are even far more effective
Stronger
than the synthetic.
Good.
That one researches are there, but the debate is really strong and it's political and a lot.
So, Prof, let's come back now on this issue because he also talked about the issue of the stages of the damage that these black beetles have on crops. We want to also look at now the damage it has on the crop plant, and also let's look at also in terms of the interaction with the environment.
Yes, like Mr. Nelson said, this is it's not really a new problem by itself. It has been there. They are indigenous in Africa, but sometimes, like I said, a lot of pests, a lot of insects are there. They are doing their thing, eating and doing their thing without any problem. But our actions start provoking them to change their behavior, and therefore we call them pests. We name them pests. So this crop has been there. There are normal beetles that have been there, eating some grasses and living their life. But as we start changing, oversimplification of the ecosystem, trying to be planting only maize in 15 hectares, in 10 hectares, removing their alternative sources that they have been eating, like the Mandela grass that you are saying. They have been eating the Mandela grass, elephant stalk, and some other grasses. When you start over removing everything,
From the root, we don't even want to see.
yes. So what do you expect to happen to the black beetle? It has to change. It's like you are fond of eating your fufu corn and katikati, and then all of a sudden they block you from eating fufu corn and katikati. Will you just sit like that and die? Because you don't fufu corn and katikati, you will start changing, find a way. Can we make a plantain to look like fufu corn? So you start testing plantain and all that. So that's what has been happening to them. So they are coming up strongly because of a lot of changes in the environment and a lot of climatic changes. That one is true. If you look at the rain this year, I think when we compare with last year, you will see a marked difference. Yes. So the pattern will be so different, So they cause damage. How? The one thing that is bad with this insect is that the small stage or the young stage, or which we call larva, is destructive. The adult is destructive. Yes. So the adults will cut the roots,
Eat everything.
go right to some of the stem, and they will even eat seeds. Because I have a personal experience. I was doing an experiment using different varieties of corn at the corner, and I realized that the first time I planted the corn seeds, I had just about 20% germination. So I had to cancel the experiment. You can imagine, after about 1 week, I had to cancel the entire experiment. But before doing that, I went to each of those holes to just start finding, is it that the seeds were getting rotten, they were not good, or is it that there is something inside eating them? Then I found these beetles and the grubs, but the beetles especially, and some other things, rat and this and that. So on the second time of planting now, I had to treat the seeds. We call it pre-treatment of the seeds before planting.
With synthetic or organic?
I use synthetic. No, I will not tell you lies. Yes, I use synthetic. And within 5 days, 7 days, all my maize were up. Okay. Now, so, 2 things. The adult cause damage. These insects, they are chewing. They are beetles. They are different from arrowworm. The adult is a butterfly. It's a moth. While the young stage is a caterpillar. This one, you have the grub and then the beetle. And then they have very strong, powerful mandibles or mouth parts. So they can cut roots, cut stems, especially of younger plants. That's why they cut, and the other also cut. So the plants, the adults cut, eat seeds, then the younger ones now, especially the third instar, that is the one that is kneeling to the adult. You know, it cuts and remove all the parts. So that's how it causes that damage. And there are certain environmental conditions that favor them. Places where you have a lot of mulch, grasses that are packed and then starting getting rotten, all those type of thing, they will be there. Our experience in the corner again is when farmers want to plant, they spray those grasses, especially those mandula grass.
Yes, for it to die.
Yes, as it's dying and getting rotten, it's like it attracts most of these beetles to come and lay eggs or something. So if you just uproot the rotten or the dying mandula grass under, you see these grubs under. And when you come and plant that corn around that area, there's high tendency they will be leaving this mandula grass rotten area or mulched area and be moving to where the young corn is, and then they eat under.
So Prof, if I get you correctly, you are saying that because this is a common practice, I'm happy farmers are watching, where you see we'll go and spray the farm, we spray the farm with mandula, we allow it to die down. The moment it dies down, we just plant and allow it like that. We think that we have done so much because the idea behind it is that the crop should grow a certain level before you come for weeding. You don't want that it should grow and you start struggling with weeding. So you want to plant it while it's dying, that your maize is growing up, so that you find it, you have a good, not much time to weed. Now, so it's dangerous.
Yes, for some insects. The other thing to why you are doing that is you want to make the grass to get rotten so that it can provide natural manure, fertilizer to your plants. But in some insects, this instead is a good habitat for them. It's a good habitat for them. Now, but you start planting maize, and maybe the type of maize variety too might attract this weevil more. It's research that is just coming.
We have on screen.
Yes, so that's fall armyworm. So what do you have on screen is for, okay, now these are the life stages of the black.
Hold that image a bit, please. No, go back. Go again.
Second. Good.
Yes, just hold on.
So, yeah, so what you see on the screens are the different stages of the black beetle. The different stages of the black beetle, and then the symptoms of damage on the plants. So when you just look at your maize plants, if you start seeing a young maize with these wilting, okay, just look at that.
Hold on, yes.
You see that? All those pale yellow colors of young maize, and then all the other side green, this side pale yellow color, all those have been infested by black weevils. And it is more serious than the fall armyworm from our experience now. Yes.
Okay, so you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you very much. As you see the maize on the screen, they are 2 months old. And when you look at them, you may even attribute it to deficient, not at that level. You may think that is nutrient deficiency, which is not the case.
Exactly.
2 months old. If you look at the borders, if you zoom the picture, you look at the borders, you see its H-mates, which are already tasseling. So you can imagine the serious effect it causes, the economic damage it causes on the farmer. Imagine you planting maize for 1 hectare, for example, which is a standard, and then you have the infestation of close to 70%. That is a big loss, because actually arrive a threshold that you cannot even manage.
Okay, now this one, let's talk about this one.
Yes, this fall armyworm. The fall armyworm is just at the stages. It just shows you the different stages. That's the moth. Normally you have the eggs, you have the caterpillar, even though the caterpillar is not well shown up there, and then you have the pupa. The pupa is a resting stage. Most insects have pupa stage. After the larval stage has eaten, caused damage, it goes into a resting stage. It forms a cocoon and it's inside there. Some of that cocoon can stay for about 4 months. Some can stay for 1 year when they undergo diapers and things like that. So, and then from that resting stage, the adult comes out. So that's how it is. For the black beetle, the black beetle is a beetle. You see it black in color.
Like what we see on the screen.
Yes. Okay. So down, you see black beetle, and then you see that's the life cycle, a bit of life cycle. Because you see that the grub on the left with a brown head and some small tiny legs. And then beside it, there's a pupa. And then there's a young adult, and then there's a mature adult, you know. One thing with this that makes it very serious with this black beetle is that the larval stage or that young stage has very long lifespan. That long lifespan means that it has to continue looking for food.
Like what we see. Hold on, this. Okay.
Yes, these are them. So you see their legs. Those are the pictures. You see them with 3 legs, 3 pairs of legs, and then a very brown head.
So is this one that we're explaining that all the stages are dangerous?
All the stages are dangerous.
I remember when the other one, which is whitish, and when I uprooted a maize plant, I saw it under the maize plant, which was actually eating the whitish.
Yes, this is a larva. The larva stage. Yes, it eats.
Which is a grub.
It is a grub. It eats the roots.
Yes.
And when it eats the root, what is happening? It is damaging the vessels.
You cannot supply food.
Yes, water cannot go in. You know, water cannot go in, minerals cannot go in, and therefore, what happens? You see the yellow, the leaves start starting yellow.
Okay, now, Prof, briefly before coming to Suh Nelson, you were explaining the fact that most of these, they used to exist and they have their natural product that they were eating, like the elephant stock and also the elephant grass and the mandula grass, what we call the mandula grass. And now that because of the fact that we are eradicating these stuffs and we are now leaving them vulnerable, so they have to feed on whatever they see, because if you look at the elephant stock plant and also they have almost a similarity, maybe they are from the same family, but different I forgot how you call this in biology.
They are all monocotyledons.
They are monocotyledonous plants. Now, what should then farmers do? Do you encourage farmers to plant elephant stock at the boundaries of their maize plants so that this elephant stock now can attract much of this Suh Nelson?
Well, it's very tricky and technical, because you look at the other side of the coin, it's advantageous. You look at the other side, it's disadvantageous. Because when you plant them, instead, you attract them, and they will bring more of the pests into the field, which now feed on the crop itself, which is a crop of interest. When you bring them, you attract. Now, what makes it advantageous is the sense that when you plant them around there, you make sure that you're going to harvest the crop. Sorry, you harvest the panicum, or you harvest maybe the elephant grass, and then you uproot and kill all the larval stages are beneath. That is a way of control. If not, you allow them there, is going to increase the population density in the field and affect your crop. So it is something tricky, advantageous and disadvantageous when you look at the side of the coin.
Let me help today. That's what we call, that technique that you've just described is called push-pull
technique.
Push-pull technology. In East Africa, it has worked very well for maize, because they discovered that there's a certain plant, if you intercrop it with maize, it repels. So when the moth wants to come there to lay eggs, that plant repels it. But now, if it repels it, it goes to where? So in the boundary, they design a system and they got a plant which attracts. So one plant is repelling, pushing, another is at the boundary to attract and maintain it on his body. Say, come and feed on me, you know, and he goes and is feeding. So it helps to reduce the population of the fall armyworm or other stem borers on the maize. Now, once it comes and is eating this, there are, as you said, you can decide to not only harvesting the plants on the boundaries, but maybe treating the plants at the boundaries. So, but it's very attractive. It attractive means that it has things that it benefits from the plant more than even the maize. So that's why it's so attractive that it's going. So there are two things, mechanism there. It wants to land, but there's a grass there which we don't use, but it has sense that push it away. Say no, go. This is not your area. And insects are very sensitive. Their sensitivity is very high. Small chemicals or odors produced by plants which other animals cannot get, insects get it. So, and that was called chemical ecology. So they get it and then they will run away. But if there was nothing at the boundary for them to go and land on and eat and remain there, they will do what? They will come back to the plant. So it's a good technology, but we have not tested it for maybe for fall armyworm and
because when I got Mr. Nelson, you explained that because of the fact that this elephant grass and also this grass, Mandola grass was actually their major source of food supply, and because we are eradicating this, we are creating a vulnerable system. And so I'm just worried about the farmers who probably don't have enough resources in their disposal to make use of synthetic pest management control, if whether or not they can also use the organic by ways of planting, like what CDC always does to prevent wind from affecting their plantation. They plant trees around the banana plant farm so that it prevents wind, and this explains why most CDC plantation had trees around the area that's to prevent wind. Now our local parents haven't seen what is affecting their crops. You just showed us an image of 2 months old. I haven't seen that. What must they take into consideration now? Because I have a message here, or messages here rather. Let me just briefly take while you reflect on the response before coming to Professor Mark. Let me take on these messages. This one says, "Hi, good afternoon. I think this is a good program. My only worry is how we must do to get rid of this armyworm and also this raspberry." This is coming from Mabi, writing from Bamenda. This one read, it says, "Happy Sunday to you. I'm happy with Professor Akumbong Mark explanation. I never knew he could be so scientific. He has explained some basic concepts which has been accepted by Professor Justin." So I want to say thank you, Professor Akumbong, which shows that you yourself are a farmer, and this is coming from Loris in Boya. This one read, it says, "Happy Sunday to you guys in the studio. Nice program. I just wish to let you guys know that you are helping us here with giving us this educative program." This one is coming from Luis in Boya. This one, this other one, right? It says, "Happy Sunday to you guys in the studio. I think Professor Justin has actually explained to it, but my worry is that these genetically modified foods have a great risk of our health system with their life cycle, especially on maize, because most of them, their life cycle doesn't end at the level of consumption. We consume it and it has to go and have an effect. So what can we do, Professor, to avoid some of these things? And will you openly advocate for GMO in Cameroon when it comes to maize seed?" This is coming from Noel in Boya. This one also right. It says, Ima, a farmer, right? It says, "Hello, I am following the program. Wonderful one. Permit the man explaining about the worm, beetles, and all that. You say you have attended conferences. What is the solution that all farmers need to know, and not stages on how it came about?" So this is now these are people concerned to know the solutions that they need to do in order to avoid this situation. So the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Jarvis. As I earlier said when I started, I say for you to manage this pest, you must understand the biology and ecology of this particular pest, be it the 4-army worm or the black maize beetle, which we call the grubs. Understanding this cycle will help you either break the cycle, destroy, or manage. Now, getting to the solution, which I know everyone out there, my viewers, are ready to listen. Now, to begin with that, Prof. Okole had talked, you must start from somewhere. There's this adage that is always said, prevention is better than cure. It's good to prevent than it arrive a stage which you cannot cure or control. So the first stage, which I'll tell my fellow viewers, is that you start by seed treatment, as Prof. Okole has said. You treat the seeds with insecticide. That prevents the insects from feeding. The second aspect is what we call constant scouting and monitoring, surveillance in your field. When you go to the field, as I earlier said, when you plant, most farmers plant and abandon the maize. Because the field that maize is not intensive, you plant and abandon the maize. When you come after 2 weeks, the pest has already invaded the crop. For example, the 4-army worm, it comes the same time together with the black maize beetle. From 7 weeks after germination, you start seeing the damage effects. So when you start by scouting, you start by monitoring the field, so that when you see the first stage of infestation, you take action. Next aspect is about plowing.
I use those big words like plowing. Please,
Good.
can you break it down?
Plowing is, in other words, you call it tillage.
Till.
You till, like how you form ridges. Farmers form ridges. If you realize, in the northwest, it's a common practice. But when you come to the southwest, most farmers do not till. And you bear with me that this particular problem is actually faced by farmers in the southwest. More, exactly. In the northwest, you don't have it because they do plowing. In my research, we are doing the research and we are discovering that when you plow, you're going to reduce the population. And when you plow, you actually expose the larvae. When you till, you expose the larvae.
That's right.
And the larvae can be eaten up by birds. You can destroy them. You do hand picking and you destroy. That's already a control measure. But most farmers just see it and abandon it. When you abandon it, it gets back into the soil and continues its process. That is the next aspect about managing this particular pest. Constant tillage. When I did this research, I discovered that after 3 years, the population kept building over time, especially at the level of the adult and the larva. So in the course of you plowing, you destroy the life cycle, you break the life cycle, and make sure that you reduce the population density that cannot affect your crop. Moreover, when you carry out some of these practices, there's what we call early planting. When you plant early, you're going to avoid and you'll not be able to meet up with the life cycle. So what happens is that when you plant early, the life cycle of the pest cannot meet up with your crop. So that's one thing I'll tell the farmers, that when it's the March period, make sure you plant on time. When you plant late, you're going to be affected by this particular pest. Another issue of control is what we call the trapping method, or use of pheromones or baited traps. There is this interesting research which we are planning to do, we are already doing, and we came to discover that using of traps like pitfall baited traps helps to catch and attract the adults, which can help you reduce the population. In the course of my research, we discover all of that and realize that it kills in each trap. You can catch after about 2-3 days close to about 25 of those insects. Imagine you catching 25 every 2-3 days. If you actually scale it up to a week, you scale it up to a month, you can imagine the population density you're going to reduce in the field, and by so doing, helping your crops grow without being affected by the pest. So trapping is a very interesting method that I'll advise our dear farmers to adopt in the field. Another aspect which I'll encourage our farmers to use is what we call destruction of alternative plants, which we talked about the mandula, we talked about the panicle. When you see them in the field, don't come clear above and you leave the root system. They keep on harboring. And this particular pest, especially the black maize beetle, can actually burrow right up to 25 to 30 centimeters below. So it feeds on the root system, harbors there, stays there for some time, and when you plant your maize, it comes to the field. So we advise the farmers to destroy the mandula and the elephant grass in the field, not to allow it in the field.
So when they destroy it now, my question now is, if you destroy it,
contribute something
yes,
to what he said.
you are. Let me just like, if you destroy this mandula now, will you not be creating a favorable environment for this insect? You say, okay, we don't have food to eat, let's invade this maize.
Well, you create the favorable environment, but what happens is that once you destroy it, you're reducing the population. So it's going to find an alternative host. Maybe, probably another time you might not find it on mandula, you might not find it on
But now you
panico.
leave your maize plant vulnerable now.
Well, but that will help reduce the population as well. You understand? It's better to destroy than to keep it, because you keep building the population over time. Because while you do that, you're also managing the crop itself, which is the maize, over time.
Yeah, Prof. Let me just take on this message. I was coming to you.
Okay.
Take on some of these messages. Hello, I am following the program. Please, I need some advice on how to keep my crops. Please, it is Tara from Yaoundé. Tara, what advice do you actually need now? Which crops?
Okay, you know, I grew up in a family where there is famine. I had a grandfather who had hundreds, in fact, over 1,000 cows. I had a grandma with wheat farm, a rice farm. In fact, she was doing soya beans. So I think maybe she would have actually come to the university to receive a PhD by now, because some of the strategies he mentions here were practices she was actually implementing during the process where we were growing with her. I remember she used to take some time. He mentioned earlier that there is need for scouting. There's need for that monitoring. She used to monitor before time. Or she monitors before she ever thinks of even going to till the soil to plant. She takes her time, and then she tells you there are some, for this past while I've seen that there are some particular things that I know about this moth. It's not now that this thing is coming to Africa. Like we are saying, though it has been here. But she will say there are some particular insects they need to, let's make sure we deal with them before we start planting. And then when she takes care of that, then now when the time for planting comes, which she will tell you is March, and she knows her time, that March where she needs to begin, then she gets involved now to till the soil. And the funny thing about it is that after every week, when you go to wheat, she had this I don't how they call it, there's a machine that we used to pull with, you push and the cow is pushing it, pulling it,
the tiller.
yes. So
Local tiller.
she uses it to do that work, and then we use the hands to work, to arrange it. And so she was very technical with her methods, and sincerely, we were not hearing most of what we are hearing right now. But as we can see, things have changed. But I think the same methods can still protect our farms. She used to cut down elephants. In fact, she did not want to see elephant stock. She didn't want to see it anywhere. So it is now from a scientific position that I'm really understanding that's what was keeping most of those things. That was a host. So that gives I'm trying to encourage the farmer out there to understand that we have techniques in Africa, and like our fellow here actually mentioned, it is important to go back using these strategies to protect our farms. And do not wait until when you see before you start acting. You must prepare the farm before you start planting. And it is but obvious, like we mentioned earlier, the professor said he actually treated his seeds before he planted them. It is necessary. It is true that most of the times people don't even know how to treat the seed, but it's good to learn it. Treating your seed before planting means that you have already protected the seed from being touched by those insects. Why? It is at the touch of when you have treated your seed with insecticide. It is when they touch these things, the moth touches. Let me just go back to say the larva of the moth, or some people call it the army worm, or some people call it caterpillar, as they call it. When it attacks this stuff, the moment it touches it, it dies because you have already treated it.
Especially when it's systemic.
When it's, yes. So at that level, it becomes easy for you to protect your farm. But we are encouraging that we should come up with organic treatments, not synthetic, because a synthetic treatment destroys even the environment.
Yeah, because he mentioned that in the East Africa there is an organic treatment to this, which
Yes.
we have identified plant that repels some of these insects away, and also within the borders plant that attract the repelled insect that attract it, and so that's what you are explaining.
I'm sure that if it works somewhere, it works everywhere.
So, and that's why we have researchers like Professor Okole Justin.
So it is important that we use this. You know, we have to try. That's what we call experimentation. If it works there, then it can be implemented here and tried. If it works, then we can spread it everywhere, and it becomes a means to protect our farms. We are, you know, I know I'm one of those persons who is advocating against GMOs in Africa. Why? Because I believe that GMOs have a dangerous after effect, not only on the environment but also on the human system. And it is very dangerous because the human system was not created to keep synthetic chemicals. It was created to assimilate every chemical that comes in, which means supposed to be organic. And so when you bring in synthetic chemicals within your system, indirectly you are promoting destruction of the system, and that becomes very, very dangerous towards the population growth of the environment. So it is very, very important that we take into consideration the fact that GMOs are not there to help this continent, but they are there to destroy this continent. It might give you food for a short period of time, but it might cost you a lot in the future.
Thank you.
So let's look into that.
This one, right? Good day. Thank you so much for this beautiful program. You are doing a great job. The professors are really on track. Seed treatment is very necessary because before planting, one can easily treat the seeds using biomethod, mixing scent grass, lemongrass, and bell pepper with the seed before planting. You might not use synthetic chemicals. Vincent Ekaku from Medea, Prof.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvis. I think I want to make something very clear to farmers. The first researchers are farmers.
Yes,
Absolutely.
very true.
That's something that they don't want to know about themselves. Don't mind, we have all these doctorate and this and that. The first researchers are the farmers themselves. Because if you calculate the number of hours that the farmers put on their farm, permanent, especially those permanent farmers, every day, every week, every month, they know a lot of things concerning those pests. It's just that to put it, the only difference is that we are going to take all those things, test it, and write big grammar and then publish it. You understand? They are the first. That is why that integrated method is necessary. The researchers, the extension officers, and the farmers will work together. The extension officers work closely and then brings the things that farmers are seeing, and then we take it, arrange it in a way, test it, and then prove it is doing. That's what to do, and then we'll go back to the extension officer who now will take it to the farmers. Now, for solutions, farmers should understand something. The government should understand something. Researchers, all stakeholders, politicians should understand something. You will not progress in the agricultural sector if you don't put research at the top.
Yes.
We must step in, get that political will to put research, agricultural research at the top. You cannot modernize agriculture and you put agricultural research at the background. It cannot go. We will not go. That's one thing. So it starts from research. When a problem like this comes out, like how Mr. Suh Nelson is looking into these black beetles, he's actually a PhD research fellow.
Yeah.
Yes, if he's looking at it, because it's something that is coming out, people are complaining all over the place. The first thing we have to start doing is research that is doing. But when research is going on, we can apply some emergency
Strategies, yeah.
strategies, and in which chemicals always come excuse me, come first. So you start with research, then you can go some emergency. While you are doing emergency and research, we start going, as results are coming, you go for farmer educational training. You need to sensitize the farmers. This is where our agri extension and research must play a role. Go around, make good studies, good presentation, talk in pidgin language or the vernacular whatsoever. Tell the farmers with pictures like this and show them this is this, this is this, this is that. Farmer educational, very important, or awareness. Then monitoring. In your farm, you must keep on monitoring. Some of those things you see your plant is dying. Some people will say it's a herbicide. It go change. It's not going to change. Some people will say it is a deficiency of nitrogen,
Nitrate, yeah,
or this and
nitrogen.
that. You know, yes. So do some monitoring and then remove and check under and see what is there before you keep on waiting or your farm is damaged. The next solution: resistant variety. There are varieties that are resistant. Our local varieties used to be very resistant to a lot of pests and diseases, but unfortunately a lot of these varieties are disappearing because other varieties and GMOs, like you say, are coming. They are eroding those local indigenous varieties. I remember in Boya, when I was in secondary school, we used to eat the Boya tomato, which is, you know, zigzag and big.
Yes.
Yes, but it has disappeared. There is this other small eye pepper which we used to use. You use it to treat avian flu.
No more seeing it.
When a fowl has a problem, just grind that pepper, put in spoon, and then open the fowl's mouth and put. My grandfather, all this bird flu, it was not a problem to him.
Yes.
Just open it and put in small pepper.
That
so
was all.
it's finished. So those things, they are disappearing. All those old resistant jagatu, what you call eggplant, they are disappearing. So those things.
Disappeared.
Then agronomic practices. He has said a lot of the agronomic practices. The timing. But you cannot use these practices if you don't understand the life system of that pest. That is where research comes in. You need to be in that farm. Like Adam Mami is being there. Suh Nelson, every week is there in the farm. To see what is happening. How are the eggs? Where do they lay it? Where is it being fed? How many days does it take for that eggs to turn into this? Which other plants are those things eating? And which month does the population comes high? Which month does the population come low? And if so, what is happening to that? Is it that there is too much rain, too much rainfall, high humidity? What about soil moisture? Suh Nelson is taking all those studies to know all that. And then you use pesticides. Pesticides are last resort. For me, pesticides go as last resort, you know, or emergency, you know. Then there is somebody who told me that in some parts in Northwest, entomophagy is playing a role. What is entomophagy? The eating of insects. That there are people till they remove those insects and they are eating them. True. With time, the population will disappear.
We used to eat them.
Prof, this is very, we are almost,
Prof, I am one of those.
We have just 6 minutes or 5 minutes. We have 4 minutes to go. Okay. So this one says, to protect your crop, you must use mucap to surround the farm. Do not use chemical on crops that are harmful to us. Use wood ash, which is natural. Before you react on that, let me just take on this other message. That one is very important. I know you are against the use of mucap to some plants, like vegetables, like African nightshade. Yes. Good afternoon, great panelists. I am also an advocate for organic farming. Marigold flower is also a very good controller. Marigold flower is also a very good controller of pests. So to intercropping your crops with marigold flower will control pests up to 80%. So more grace. This topic is very touching. Freddy writing from Bamenda. This one, right? Thank you. Thanks very much, the professors, for the vital information handed to us. Thanks a lot. Please, I would like to know if there is a specific specialty as economic of agriculture or agriculture. If yes, where is it offered in Cameroon?
It is, but I don't know where it is offered in Cameroon.
There is mocap and wood ash.
Yes, for the use of mocap. Mocap is there's something that thank that person for raising that. Mocap is a very good and effective chemical, no doubt. But it is the most dangerous chemical in Cameroon, registered in homologated by Minade as we're talking. WHO class 1A, extremely dangerous, extremely hazardous. Now, what people don't know about the homologation of mocap in Cameroon, which you call tebufos, or some people call etoprofos, you know, but it's counter that most of people are using now, and they call mocap, you know, which is tebufos. It is that it is registered only for the use of banana and plantains.
So mocap is only registered for the use of banana and plantain?
Yes. But if you go now, everywhere mocap, and most of the poisonings, intoxications, accidental poison and killings that we have as a result of pesticides is a result of mocap.
Yeah, because you have some parents naively use it to protect their maize on the ban.
Yes, everywhere. So it's a very dangerous chemical that if you are not really a professional, if you are not really, if it, ask those who are applying it, you apply it, you can vomit, you can collapse.
Sometimes they mix it with wood ash.
Yes, and they use their hands.
No, now what of natural wood ash? Natural
good.
Wood
So
ash.
natural wood ash is good. Natural wood ash is more of a fertilizer.
Fertilizer, yes.
That's what people don't understand. It's more of a fertilizer, but with some certain insects, like if you put wood ash in the middle of the corn when corn is growing, those caterpillars, when they come there, they will not be able to stay in that middle, so it disrupts them. Some of them, it tears them, their body, and they die, those type of things. But if you have 15 hectares of maize, 10 hectares of maize, how will you go putting those fertilizers, you know? And people are advocating for biopesticides. Before you start teaching farmers or telling farmers to use biopesticides, organic pesticides, we must have them. Do we have them in Cameroon?
That's why you are there now.
So we've started, yes. If you look at the stores, very few stores, you will see Rapax. Rapax is a biopesticide, which is made up from a bacterium, Bacillus thuringiensis. Okay. You can buy that. Rhizobium is there. Trichoderma is there, which is for fungus. And then Rata is what I've made. I made it from neem oil, from eucalyptus oil, from rubbing alcohol, and some other things to be used for modding, for sucking pest and all that.
You need to promote that your own, Professor. We need
we're out of time. So Nelson, what's the take home? We're out of time.
Okay, take home message for the farmers today is that as Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to bring change. So Prof. Okole talked about creating awareness, sensitization, and education. It's the first stage to bring this change. If we have to improve on our production and productivity, farmers have to be educated. So we must educate ourselves, make sure we are informed. From there, we'll have a couple of solutions to manage different challenges we have, be it pest and other challenges in our community. That's the take-home message for the farmers. And one last thing I'll tell the farmers is that be ready to always keep yourself informed, because this program will continue and we'll be able to feed you more information. We apologize that we don't have much time. There's a lot we could share with you, but with time, as time goes on, we'll share more information to educate ourselves. Thank you very much, Mr. Jarvis.
Thank you very much. Professor Akumbong, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Jarvis. And I want to say to farmers, I think it is time for us to go back to the past. You know, when I speak like this, a lot of persons think maybe I am one of those advocates for the old good days. Yes, but I want to say that when it comes to agriculture, we do not know agriculture more than those who had been before us. What we are struggling to explain today are practices that had been, which we had neglected. And I think when to learn them will permit us escape from a lot of harm that is facing us right now and which might face us tomorrow.
Somebody said he did not know how that you can be so scientific. Thank you very much for coming, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvis. Like Mr. Suh said, I think that if we are given more opportunity, we will come out with more of such programs.
Very important.
You know, such topics. A lot of things are there that farmers need to know.
Especially on this mukape.
Yes, so we have the opportunity, we will come back. You know, but for me, my take-home message is, I'm begging the government via the Ministry of Scientific Research and MINADE to put more effort to increase the package for research. Research needs more package. Research needs to be funded. It is a sacrifice. We beg them to increase the research funding package.
Okay. We are out of time. We want to say thank to all those who took our time to participate, who sent us your messages, those who also watch the program on a different social media platform. We want to thank you, Desmond, Akeba, Alain. We want to thank also the gentlemen here at the studio switching the cameras. I want to thank you, the guests, for coming. We'll keep the rendezvous next week, Sunday, or yet another interesting edition on the program House of Commons. If you are watching us, you want to be a member or a panelist or to take part in some of our discussion, you can contact me on the numbers that were on your screen so that we can include you into our WhatsApp group. In case a topic which is there is of your interest, you can participate. This program comes every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30, and rebroadcast will be today at 10:30. You can follow it on our YouTube channel, BT Media Group. You can have it on our YouTube channel, BT Media Group, or on our Facebook page, My Media Prime TV or BT Media Group. Follow us on Twitter, My Media Prime. My name is Tah Mai Jarvis from Cameroon Commercial Capital Douala. What matters is that farmers should do more research as far as their farm is concerned. Pay attention and revert or go to researchers and explain what they are seeing as symptoms on their farm so that they can have the treatment they so need. That is what matters today. Bye-bye from Cameroon's Commercial Capital Douala. Feng Gujong Bange.